Tell you what. Come on. To tell you the truth, I was halfway home when I heard the applause. I made a U-turn on the freeway and came back. I says, there must be a show on. What the hell is going on tonight? Not at all. I see. Getting cranked up for the big game tomorrow. USC Notre Dame out here. That should be a great game. He's on in a great mood. I have an idea. Why don't you, I've got an extra toothbrush. Why don't you stay over? You'll never get a cab at this hour. Remember those moves? See how... Sure, now that you got it all in your system, you want a show, don't you? You'll have to excuse the monologue tonight. It's the day after Thanksgiving, and all I have are leftover jokes. That was one of them.
How cold are they?
We don't pass that down here, whatever you're smoking. I'd like a little... I understand 6 turkeys yesterday did get away unscathed, though. They were stopped at the border. They had passports, had wearing rubber noses and glasses. You know, this year it seemed different than Thanksgiving last year. Last year it was plop, plop, fizz, fizz, and this year that was the sound of the American dollar, going plop, plop, fizz, fizz. There was a joke there. I lost it somewhere on... The economy is still a serious problem in the paper. That's all you read about. I picked up the paper today, and according to the Wall Street Journal, a man was standing on the 40th floor of a building, a ledge back in New York City. Crowd was out there. He's threatening to jump, and a guy looked up, and one of the guy in the crowd says, "My broker is E.F. Hutton, and if E.F. Hutton says jump..." Wow, huh? I wish I'd have been with that guy. I thought I'd gone deaf for a moment. I came to the end of it. I said, my God, it struck me deaf. Well, anyway, we got some. The Christmas season now traditionally is here. The day after Thanksgiving, we are now in the Christmas season. It's a little commercial. It starts a little too early. The networks are planning all their specials. You know they have one coming up, a musical special for Christmas called Gladys Knight and the Three Wise Pips? They are running out of ideas for Christmas specials. One network is doing a special called Charlie Brown Kills Santa Claus. Care for that. I just want to look at you and see how you look. Tomorrow's there are 2 football games tomorrow. There are about 3 on Sunday. Then there's Monday night football. This country is football crazy. I thought it was even in bad taste today when the Highway Safety Council predicted this weekend a death toll of 400 with a point spread of 36. Did you read about Stephen Ford in the paper? Did you see that article? Yeah, people love to write books and articles on things that went on in the White House. And according to Betty Ford's press secretary, it seems that during the time that President Ford was president, Steve Ford, I was going to say Jack, but it was Steve Ford, apparently had a date in the White House. And she stayed overnight in one of the bedrooms. And Steve Ford woke up the next morning and peeks out the door, and Barbara Walters and a TV camera crew were there. It was in the paper today, going on a White House tour. But I understand Barbara was very discreet. She climbed between the couple and said, "Now, tell me exactly how you felt." Barbara was nice. True story. Actually, President Ford was not in the White House at the time. He was holding a high-level cabinet meeting down the street at a Ramada Inn. Well, what else happened today? Not much. You know what is a big success in Japan? It was on front page of the paper today. McDonald's has moved into Japan. They opened the 5,000th McDonald's around the world, the 147th one in Japan. And over there you get a hamburger, they call it, Hambaga, for 79 cents. And a Big Maca. That's what they say. A Bigu Maca is $1.79. Isn't that nice? Got 147 McDonald's in Japan. I knew we'd get even for Pearl Harbor. They also have a Jack in the Box over there, but you drive up and Jack snaps your picture. Weird. I don't know. I can't imagine McDonald's in Japan. Can't you see the waiters in there telling customers to keep an eye on their flies? Okay. I'll tell you what's on the other channel tonight. Merv Griffin has got another theme show that only Merv does with such great panache. Tonight, Merv is having Teddy Kennedy, Gerald Ford, Jerry Brown, and Mork. They're all going to discuss the art of double talk. That's it. Okay, I don't want to keep you too long because we got a good show tonight. Good friend of mine, Jimmy Garner, is here. And, Lockwood, we have a fine actress. Miss Ellen Burstyn is with us. We have David Letterman. And Rod Dornsife is with us. We'll tell you how to avoid getting a traffic ticket or what to do after you get one. So thanks for coming. We'll be with you. Here. We'll be right back. Oh, sure. Tom, hamburger. We have Jimmy Garner with us tonight, Ellen Burstyn, David Letterman. And David Letterman is a young man who was on the Mary Tyler Moore variety show. Very clever young man. And Rod Dornsife is a former motorcycle traffic officer who was with San Diego for about 5 years. Wrote a book called The Ticket Book. You ever got a ticket?
Oh, yes.
For what?
Speeding and that type of thing. And I must say, I think when you get one that you deserve, you should take it gracefully and take it as a warning and a chance to... They're trying to do you a favor, I think.
Oh, they must be after you. Have you done something we don't know about?
No, but I was thinking I might.
Isn't that an awful feeling when you're driving along and you look back and you see the red lights going and you know that it's for you?
Oh, I got nailed for one in New York once. It was the worst thing. On 49th Street, they had a police slowdown, and they were looking to get rid of some tickets.
Oh,
sure. And I was driving. I had the mustache and all, driving a sports car, and a cop pulled me over, and he walked around a car for 15 minutes before he could find something that he thought was wrong. F. Lee Bailey was going to defend the case.
Well, what were you doing?
I was just sitting there waiting for the light to change. In the meantime...
You see, you look suspicious. Guys with mustaches are always in trouble.
Wait a minute.
Guys with mustaches generally look shifty.
Just because I had on my raincoat and a box of Hershey bars in the car doesn't mean anything.
I got stopped once, and speaking of New York, I was driving up to upstate New York, and I look back, and there are the siren, and I said, I don't know what the hell I was doing, and I pull over, and the guy gets out. True. He comes up and he says, Johnny Carson, right? And I said, right. And he has an autograph book. True. And he says, I got Durwood Kirby yesterday. True story. And I said, you're scaring people to death out here. Because when you see those red lights, you want to go, you don't know what they're after you for. They only want an autograph. All right. Incidentally, yesterday, as you know, was Thanksgiving. And we missed observing a very important birthday. Wonder how many of you knew whose birthday it was yesterday? Franklin Pierce.
Oh, darn it.
Franklin Pierce was the 14th president of the United States.
I'll take your word for it.
Well, he's not known. See, he's not known. The only reason that Pierce became president, he looked so good after Fillmore. Millard Fillmore. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. Okay.
Well, that's the kind of stuff these people are here. It keeps things alive. It isn't all just beer and Skittles and laughter here. We got to give these folks some information, too.
Right. Smart outfit. If you're going to war. As you know, this has not been the best TV season in history. It's a tough competitive business. A lot of shows go on, and they get knocked off after a few weeks. And all of the networks already are planning for what they call, I guess it used to be called the second season, but now they're called mid-season replacements. for shows that didn't make it. I'm going to give you some of the shows coming up. These are NBC, by the way. There's a show coming up called Cliffhanger. Now, this is remember the old serials? And you'd go to Saturday and you'd see the serial. Well, this is a television version of the serials that a lot of us saw on Saturday afternoon. They have a 60-minute segment. Will feature 3 cliffhanger serials, which will hopefully encourage viewers to tune in the following week to find out what happened. Here's a new show called The Love Song of Fred and Carrie. I'm not making these up. This is about a white widow and a black widower, both in their 50s, who meet, fall in love, and then have to contend with the reaction of his son and daughter and his son. There's one called The Duke, private eye series with Robert Conrad that's in the works. Bonnie and Frankie. I love the cute titles, Bonnie and Frankie. A situation comedy about a pair of women undercover cops. Brothers and Sisters. Now, what do you think this is based on? A comedy about shenanigans taking place in a campus sorority house and fraternity house. Because of Animal House, right? Hospital Stay, a comedy about a feisty old nurse and her daughter, who both work in the same hospital. IFR, which stands for Institute for Retaliation. This is a quasi-governmental organization with unlimited funds dedicated to helping legitimate victims get revenge on their victimizers. Folks, I mean, this is what's going on in our world. There's one called Wayward Girls. Well, I certainly hope so.
That sounds good. I like it.
Yes, a comedy set in Miss Wayward's School for Girls. Oh, now I didn't get that. Miss Wayward's is the lady who runs it. You see how cute they are? Wayward, a comedy set in Miss Wayward's School for Girls. With the girls, a bunch of mischievous juvenile delinquents. And with a headmaster, a former assistant warden at Sing Sing. Now, folks, this is the high caliber of network thinking. Those are a few of the pilots you will see. And, of course, for everyone that gets on the air, there are probably 40 or 50 that do not make it. Our staff checked into some of those that did not make it. You will not see, but luckily we managed to get some still pictures taken during rehearsal. And if you watch the monitor, we'll tell you about some of the pilots that didn't make it. Here's one called Laverne in the Icebox. It's a comedy about a girl from Milwaukee whose roommate is a frost-free refrigerator. And Laverne is unable to get dates because both she and her roommate are frigid. This is one that didn't get on. Okay, didn't make it, folks. Here's another one that I kind of like. This is a wide world of sports special called the Pinto 500. Now, they don't race, but understand, they don't race. The drivers sit in parked Pintos. And the winner is the person who can be scattered into the most outlying suburbs. Didn't get on. This is an anthology series called Weirdest Crimes of the Century. Here you see master criminal Ivan Dimsley, whose weird crime is sneaking up on unsuspecting female farmers and backing into their pitchforks. Didn't make it. Here's a new show called Fantasy Barbershop, where you go and let your follicles live out their fantasies. Here you see a man whose fantasy was to see his mustache sucked up through his brain. Didn't get on. There's one called Love Barge. Obviously a takeoff and a successful show. Here we see first mate Bob receiving news that he has caught a venereal disease from a deck chair. Here's a supernatural series, The Neck Psychic. This is about a fortune teller who can predict the future by staring not into a crystal ball, but into an old man's goiter. Well, you see, that's why I didn't make it, folks. From the producers of the TV series Flying High comes a new show, Flying Low. This is a comedy about a trio of happy-go-lucky airline stewardesses and their devil-may-care pilot who fly illegal drugs out of Colombia. And in this scene, you see them as they ruin the happy hour at the airport bar. Didn't make it. Here's a new cooking program called Cannibal Chef. Right here you see the cook Livingston preparing skull stew. That was on the first episode, and they didn't want that on. These sound better than the ones they have. You remember the wonderful motion picture, Lassie Come Homes? This is a remake called Fido, Go Away. This is the story of a slow-learning German shepherd who insists his master is a tree. So it's never going to There's a show called Nazi Taxi. Here, Fritz waits outside a grenade festival to take General Schmidt back for a helmet fitting. Fortunately, that one didn't make it. A Western series about a Dodge City proctologist who becomes the fastest glove in town. We don't have a title for that yet. New story called Cat House. Story of a female lion who runs a brothel in Central Africa. So far, the only customers have been Marlon Perkins and his assistant. And a new show called Where's My Office? This is the story of a man who continually sets up a desk in a field, hoping someone will build a wall around him so he can hang up his mementos. Those are just a few of the pilots that didn't get on. Okay, tonight we have James Garner with us, Ellen Burstyn, David Letterman, and Rod Dornsife. We'll do that right after this brief, as they say. We are back. My first guest tonight. Back, Tom. He's a gentleman you all know. He's a fine actor and finally got recognized for his excellent work last year by winning an Emmy for The Rockford Files, which is on NBC Friday nights at 9 o'clock. Would you welcome Jim Garner? We don't let anything. We spare no expense here.
Oh, I noticed that. I want to say something.
Sure.
I really enjoyed being at your 20th anniversary party.
Yeah, we had a little do.
Very nice.
Ed's wife and my wife, Joanna, threw a surprise party for us, and that's not easy to pull off for her. Ed and I started on a show called Who Do You Trust back in New York, and then 16 years on this show. We had a 20th anniversary. We walked in Chasen's. I thought it was a political rally. She said that I think at that time it was for Carrie Peck. She says, why don't you drop in and say hello? And we walked in, and I saw you, and I saw a lot of people, and I still didn't get wise because you were the kind of people that might be at a rally. All of a sudden we found out, Willie, you know what I'm talking about? Stars of your ilk or stature could have been associated with that.
Well, I had a pleasant time.
Did you really? A pleasant time?
Oh, it was a pleasant evening.
You saw Lamas the other night, didn't you? Lamas was here talking about the party, and I said, did you have a good time? And he said, yes, it was a pleasant party. I said, what do you mean pleasant? That sounds like a cop-out. I says, wasn't it a great party? Fernando says, no, it was a pleasant party. It was nothing.
It was a pleasant party. I was sitting at the same table with Fernando.
You were.
And you.
Yeah, it was a pleasant party. You don't go out often. I don't see you out around town. Where do you hide out?
Home?
Do you really?
Yeah. I go out,
Would you just
really
describe yourself
twice a year.
as a loner?
My wife thinks so.
Yeah? Does she want
I guess I am a loner.
Does she want to go out more often?
Oh, yes.
And what do you say? How do you get
I
away
say
with
go.
that?
Let her go.
No, come on now.
No, I really, I work too much to go out. I really do. When I get home on the weekend, I can hardly walk by the Friday night, you know. Really.
No, what's a typical night at home for you? You don't have to go into...
You really want to hear it?
I think these people would like to know.
I'll tell you a typical night.
Sure, listen. They'll find this thrilling. Here's a big star who's going to tell you how glamorous and exciting it is at the Garner's household.
You want to hear the whole day?
Just if you want.
the evening.
The whole day, or whatever.
Well, the whole day is up about 5:30, 5:45. I get to the studio.
In the morning?
In the morning, about 7. Now I work all day. I get home between 7:30 and 8:30. At night, I take my makeup off, have a shower, and I have dinner by somewhere around 9:15.
Dinner.
And then
It's exciting.
Then I have to learn about anywhere from 10 to 15 pages of dialogue. And then I go to sleep, and I get up at 5:30 the next morning. I do that.
Boy, and you thought it was going to be...
It's
dull.
a thriller. I can't tell you.
See, they were expecting something glamorous and exciting. That's it, huh?
Do that every day for about 9 months a year. It's fun. I remember one thrilling night. The traffic on the freeway was just great. It was the most exciting
That was the
thing.
biggest thing that happened that week.
You know, something I really have noticed, I have literally gone to work and never seen the sun.
What, the
I
second-
have gotten to work before the sun comes up, and I've gone home afterward and never left the stage.
And they all begin
Never
to shout.
seen the daylight.
But for
And
that,
when
you
they
get
send me that check, I don't know.
you get almost $300 a week, don't you, for that show?
Why, are you getting that much?
Yeah. Didn't you know? You can get almost $300 now a week.
Is that before or after?
All right, now let's assume. All right, let's assume you're not Jim Garner. You're not doing Rockford Files. You're not well known all over the world. What would you be doing? What would you rather do than this? We all complain. I mean, everybody complains about their job.
That's really hard to say. I think if I found something I like better than what I'm doing, I'd probably do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I would like to have been one of two things if I hadn't have been an actor, and I would have been either a professional golfer or a race driver.
Yeah, I know you're about a 2 handicap or 1 handicap golfer.
Oh, somewhere in there.
Well, that's pretty close to scratch. Now that's
Yeah, well, no, I'm about at 5 now.
yeah, that's very tough.
Because I only play about 3 months a year.
Yeah, that's when you're not getting up at 5:30 in the morning.
I don't have time to play during the working season.
Yeah. Speaking of 20 years ago, weren't you at that time starring in Maverick?
Yep.
Was it that long?
21.
What? 21 years ago. I mentioned that to Freddie DeCorda this afternoon. We sat there and says, no, that can't be. It was 10, 12 years ago. But that was 21 years ago?
21 years ago.
That does not seem possible. And
Well,
that
I
still
saw one
plays.
the other night.
That plays around, doesn't it?
Oh. Well, when I was watching television at 1 o'clock in the morning, one of them came on the other day, and my stand-in, who was still with me, Louis Delgado, and my stuntman, who was still with me, he's as old as I am. And I saw it, I couldn't believe. We all looked like about 16-year-old kids. It was just amazing.
It was a
And they're
good show.
still running
That
those
was a darn good show.
Yeah, it was for what it was when it was.
Yeah.
I don't think it holds up, but at the time it did pretty good. Steve Allen and Ed Sullivan didn't like it too well.
That's right.
That
I
was our
remember.
opposition, remember?
You know that's true because I'll tell you why. I went on Steve's show at that time. That's when Ed Sullivan's show was on. You came on, and Steve Allen had his hour variety show. And I remember, and Steve has still got the film clip. I didn't have it, and I went on. I was trying to think of a bit to do on Steve's show.
I saw, yeah.
And all I came up with, I said, I brought this problem up. I said, a lot of you people are watching maybe Ed Sullivan Tonight or Maverick or Steve's show. And you'd like to see all of them. So I did. I prepared a bit with all three of you. The premise was you were playing poker with Ed Sullivan and Steve Allen, and I played all the parts.
Yeah.
And I had a table set up, was the bit. And I sat down and dealt the cards. I put the hat. All I had was I couldn't do you because I didn't have the voice, but I just put the Western hat on and says, how many cards? Then a change seat. And, give me two cards. Then I'd get up and you'd say, and I'd put the hat quickly back on and move back into your seat and say to Steve, how many do you want, Steve? I'd get up and go over to Steve and went, did Steve's silly laugh, went back and did the whole bit that way.
I remember
for
you.
about 5 minutes.
Funny skit.
That's right. That's why I remember you.
I
Exactly
saw it
opposite.
about a year ago. I think somebody.
Steve was doing a retrospective or something, and he pulled that out. And I had not seen it in, well, that was 20 years ago?
That was 20 years ago.
Whoa. Didn't they do also, didn't Ralph Edwards do you on This Is Your Life? Do you remember This Is Your Life?
Yeah.
That was a hot show, which at that time was live, and the recipient was not supposed to know, of
No,
course. They tried to trick him and get him to the studio.
I'm one of the few people that knew.
You knew?
The secret is out. Yeah, by accident, I found out about it. I was late to work.
Yeah.
First time I'd ever been late to work, and somebody came to our door at 8 o'clock in the morning. I was supposed to be at the studio at 7, so he thought he was safe. And the doorbell rang, and I jumped up, and I said, my God, I'm late. So I ran in the bathroom. My wife answered the door. And Hugh Benson, who was an executive of the studio, said, well, I'm here to take care of you and the baby and everything, because today they're going to do This Is Your Life on Jim. She said, oh, well, I'm going to have to tell him. He says, you can't. The phones are cut off at the studio. Nobody can talk to him. You can't tell him. She said, oh, yes, I can. Honey. And I came trotting out, and he just...
Now you had to play it like you didn't know.
Well, the problem of it was I refused to do it.
You wouldn't?
Oh, no, I didn't want to do that. But he says, you've got to. I said, I don't have to do anything.
Because
He
they
said,
were going
but
on
what
the air.
about your grandmothers? And your mom and dad and all your relatives and your friends have been here for 5 days in the hotel rehearsing.
That's where the
Now,
voice
that's
would come off.
blackmail if there
That's
ever
where
was.
the voice would come off stage.
Hello, Jim. Do you remember me?
Then it'd wheel Granny out.
Yeah.
Half the time, the people did not want to see Grandma.
There were times when they didn't want to see him.
Right.
Oh, they did say, yeah, I had some.
Did you go through with it?
Oh, yeah, I had to.
Of course.
Uh,
That's show business. Show must
But
go
it
on.
was kind of fun. I put them on all day. I was absolutely terrible. Anything they wanted to do, I didn't want to do it. And Jack Kelly and Jack Casey, a PR man, were assigned to me to keep me busy and not, get there too early. It was a photography session right across the alley here at NBC. And I said, let's go on over there. And he said, no, let's have another drink. And I got them plastered. Both of them were ripped.
And they didn't know that you
And
knew all that.
they didn't know that I knew it. And when Ralph Edwards came on and did the whole thing, how are you going to fake it? So I just got angry. And I turned around and I kicked at Jack and he said, you. And it was live television. So I got...
Like we are.
Like we were. Nobody can read that. Should I said SOB?
No, just make a difference now. That's,
Anyway,
that's after the fact.
I got back at him for
That's funny.
yeah, it was really weird.
There was one instance, and I'd have to check with Ralph Edwards. If he watches it tonight, he'll probably let me know. But somebody would not go on. Who was it? And they were all ready, and he was next door, or he was in a restaurant or something. And when time got ready to bring him on,
He was a Brown Derby.
he would not go. Was it Lowell Thomas?
It was Lowell Thomas who would.
Is that name?
I don't know whether he did. No, he did go on.
There was somebody
but
who
he really hated it.
Yeah,
He
kicking
just
and
put
screaming,
down
they drug him in, and Ralph Edwards is saying, "This is your life. I don't want to go on." And it was a great night.
I did more or less the same thing.
Yeah, but you knew.
But every time he got maudlin, they do that.
Oh, yes.
If they can get.
Bring
It's
on
like
your former
they
school teacher
actually- Yeah, they brought out my old commanding officer in the Army, and he said that I saved his life. I was wounded before he was.
You didn't.
I didn't save his life, and I mentioned the name of the guy that did because I happen to know about it. But people get on there and say the weirdest things.
Did you point it out that you didn't save his life? after
Yes,
you
I did. I said there was another fellow there, wasn't there? Oh, yes, he was there. I don't want to mention that guy's name because I did it 20 years ago, and I just got a letter about 10 days ago about somebody who said, did you say this guy's name?
Oh, I see.
And did I know him and whatever, and I don't want to get into that again.
That's right. I know from your autobiography. You got or your biography. You got a couple of Purple Hearts during the war, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I didn't really get them. I got one, but they didn't give me the... I didn't really get the medal itself.
Why not?
I got the wounds.
Well, you're supposed to get decorated.
I made a dumb mistake when I was in the hospital with the second one. They said, do you have a Purple Heart? And I said, yeah. I said, okay. They never gave me one. But I've been in the line when I got the first one, and they never actually gave me the medal. They never did.
Well, why don't we?
I tried to get it when I got out of the Army. They wouldn't give it to me. Said, you already got one.
Well, we're going to take care of that. Will you come back here for the presentation?
No,
Well-
now I'm mad. I won't.
Well, no.
I was lucky the first time the North Koreans shot me. The second time our own Navy did. Well, they're dangerous.
What do you want to tell me about that? Because I was in the Navy. I can understand that
There
happening.
was a Navy Panther jet pilot.
Yes.
Yes. And they're dangerous because, we got better weapons. Yeah, they can really hurt you. They got me, well, how do you say it? I don't want to get bleeped again.
Oh, you mean the location?
Well, we're fighting the North Koreans. I was going south. Does that help?
Big. Right in the...
Right in the old kazoo.
Ah.
What it was is I dove in a foxhole and I went head first.
That's right. Such an inviting target, he probably
Yeah.
just says, hey, let's practice.
Well, it was hard to miss.
Weird story. Let me take a break. We're coming right back after this. My next guest, I'm sure you all know, she is a She's truly a fine actress. You said you haven't, it'd be interesting when she comes out and tell her last time you worked together, but she recently starred in the film Dream of Passion with Melina McCurry, and her brand new film, which opened last week in Los Angeles and New York, is called Same Time Next Year, also starring Ellen Alda. Would you welcome, please, Ellen Burstyn. Ellen.
She doesn't know, Doc.
How are
We
you?
know each other, we can kiss.
Yes, you can kiss. That's it. That's
Do you know
acceptable.
how we know each other?
Jim just mentioned, I was backstage, he said, gee, I'm glad Ellen's on the show tonight. And he says, I've worked with her. And I figured, well, it was like last week or something, you know, because everybody thinks in this business that everybody knows everybody else. But you had worked with him before, but you tell him when.
18 years ago. I know that because it was just when you finished Maverick.
Yeah, I was having a lawsuit at the time.
Yes. And I know it was before my son was born, and he's 17 now, so it had to be at least 18 years ago.
What did you work together on?
We did a play called John Loves Mary in summer stock. We toured, I think, 3 cities. He was so popular at that time that it took him an hour and a half to get out of the theater at night. He had to sign all the autographs for everybody who came to the, would do those tent shows, like for 2,000 people. And we had connecting dressing rooms, and the people would file in my dressing room and out his. They never stopped and asked for my autograph. It just on the way, is this way to Mr. Gardner's?
That's that television exposure, that instantaneous recognition. Jim said he has not seen you, I don't think, since that time.
That's right.
We have not seen each other in 18 years. Well, in this business, we're all very close.
I could, but that's a kind of a misconception. That's a myth that all entertainers know each other well, and like we have a cookout at each other's house every night. And Jim and I had a jammy party last week, but outside of that, nothing.
Everywhere I go, when I meet people who aren't in the business and they assume that I know everybody in the business, what they want to know is, what's John and Carson really like?
What are you going to say? Because we don't know each other well.
That's right.
We've met, but that's kind of a myth. Say, Same Time Next Year is a wonderful play.
Thank you.
And I read some great reviews on it. For the people who do not know, because we have a small film clip, you want to fill them in on what it's about? It's about a couple who meet at a resort initially.
It's a couple who meet at a resort accidentally. She's on her way to a religious retreat, and he's out of town doing business.
And they're both married, right?
And they're both married and have families, and they meet and they have an affair that weekend. And they decide that they want to stay married, and they love their spouses, but they also care for each other, so they make a date to meet at the same place once a year. And so the picture covers 25 years, just their meeting each weekend. I mean, for one weekend each year.
It's a great premise.
Yeah.
And you cover it in a series of what, about 5-year intervals or something like that? They're 4 or 5.
5-year intervals, yeah. And it's wonderful because it's sort of a history of America and what we've been through in the last 25 years. So, I mean, as I was doing it, I remembered all of the changes that I've gone through.
Because you did it originally on Broadway.
Yeah.
And now you did the movie. Was it like, after you've been away from part for a while, was it like coming back to something very familiar, or?
Well, yes, except I had a new boyfriend.
That's right.
So,
was Chuck Grodin in the...
Chuck Grodin was the original George, and Alan Alda is in the film. And so it was like having a new love affair.
Yeah, that is strange, because the character, when I saw it, would change, because you go through the Berkeley, the radical 60s, and you see the people's attitudes and changes, and it says a lot. Yeah. And it's kind of a fantasy, I suppose, for a lot of people to fantasize about something. Everybody can identify with that kind of a story.
I don't know. Do you think you could get away with that? Once for a weekend, once a year?
But everybody fantasizes about that, right? Now, how about you? No, I don't know. The guilt feelings might...
I'm sorry, I didn't make you stutter.
No, you didn't make me stutter.
What would you say? I mean, just, in fantasy now, if you did make such an arrangement, what excuse would you give to your wife?
Or you deny. Or you always deny.
Uh-huh.
Don't you remember the Italian, what was it, divorce, Italian style or something? Where the wife came in and he's in bed with a girl and denies it right there. Of course. And he turned it around and he accused her. He says, you're not supposed to be back until Friday. And she'd come back on a Thursday. And he turned it around and made her very guilty. He says, don't you trust me? You said you weren't coming back till Friday. And it was wonderful. He just kept denying, and there he was, right there. I don't think that would work, though.
No, no.
Can you relate to this kind of a
Well,
fantasy?
I must say that it seems to me that the institution of marriage in this country is built on the idea of fidelity, but it would be nice if we knew how much fidelity there really is, wouldn't it?
Maybe it's better we don't. We're going to come back. We'll show you a film clip. I don't know which particular segment this is, but we'll find out. We'll do this first. Then I'm going to get your reaction to this, Jim. Sure. Sitting over there, Mr. Smart. We just talked about making pictures of how difficult it is, because one thing I like about television, you asked me if I did, are we going to do a picture of something? And one thing about television, you get an immediate feedback. It's like working a live show. You either good or bad, and you know immediately. When you make a picture sometimes, 6 months later, until the picture is out, you're not sure whether the way it's going to be put together is the way you envisioned it when you did it, and how it'll be received by the audience and the critics.
Yeah.
And this has come out very well, though, I understand.
Yes, the audiences really seem to love it.
What segment now of your extracurricular activities are we going to see? The first meeting, the second 5 years, the...
I understand it's the first meeting, the morning after.
Morning after, as we diplomatically call it. Okay, watch the monitor.
Hi.
Hello.
It's a real sharp-looking outfit. What time is it?
My watch is on the bed table.
10 to 12?
No, it's 8:25. The stem is broken. It's 3 hours and 25 minutes fast.
Why don't you get it fixed?
I was going to, but I got used to it.
Doesn't it mix you up?
No, I'm very quick with figures.
Oh. Why are you looking at me like that?
Why do you have to look so luminous? I mean, it would make things so much easier if you woke up with puffy eyes and blotchy skin like everyone else.
Guess God just figured that chubby thighs were enough.
Look, this isn't going to just go away. We have to talk about this.
Okay.
Where are you going?
I want to brush my teeth.
So that's the way it is, huh?
That's what it is.
I've
There's
often
so much
wondered.
better looking at that than when I was on the show with Don Denver while you were away. We looked at a clip of Dream of Passion, and I couldn't look at it because it was so ugly. So it was nice to be able to see a nice, happy.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Are you able to watch yourself critically without... most actors or actresses are not. They look at it and they say, oh, I could have done this a little better. A little nuance here, maybe a little different look, or you say once it's done, and you've done your best, and that's it.
Well, I always look at the dailies. I look at each day's work, and I'm pretty objective about that. But then after it's over and it's all cut together, when I sit with an audience, then I always feel real cringy and embarrassed. So I only see it once. And then sometimes after it's been playing I'll sneak into a neighborhood theater and...
Did you get a reading on it?
And just watch the audience then.
Yes, since I caught Mel Brooks doing that once. I went to see Blazing Saddles, and I came out of the theater, and there was Ann and Mel standing in the back of the theater like he's rooting the crowd on. He just wanted to get it. You know, he said, hey, that's a great picture. I thought it was one of the ushers standing there. He just ducked into the picture to see what the reaction was, which is not a bad way to do it.
Well, it's a good way, you know, only the audience can tell you whether or not
In the
you're
long run.
doing what you mean to be doing, you know.
I asked Jim this question. What would you do? Acting obviously is very important to you. You're very skilled at it. If you hadn't become an actress, what kind of life do you think you'd want to lead? If tomorrow you couldn't act, and says, okay, you got a second choice now.
Well, I'd love to go to the moon. Or anywhere else in outer space. So I don't know if I'd qualify for an astronaut, but...
I think they have ladies in training now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm still acting, so I'll probably won't do that.
Well, when that's true, we'll book the moon. May have theaters there soon. Who knows? We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. We're back. Thank you, Tom. We're talking to Ellen Burstyn and Jim Garner. My next guest is a young performer, a comedian who was a regular on the recent Mary Tyler Moore variety series. He appears regularly here in town at the Comedy Store, and will be hosting the Rose Bowl Parade for television on the 1st of January. Would you welcome, please, David Letterman. David?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. How many of you folks here have never been to a TV studio before? Applaud if you've never been to one of these films. Okay. How many of you have been here before? Applaud if you have been here before. Okay. All right, now how many of you who have never been here before today are here with somebody who has been here before? Applaud. Okay, now, listen carefully. This gets a little confusing at this point. How many of you out of that last group are in this country illegally? Could we just hear? Great, fine. Looking for yard work, I'll bet. Well, nice to have you here. I just got back into the United States. I was in Canada, and I flew back a couple of days ago. I flew one of those bargain flights, $99 one way, and literally no bargain. You know, it's hundreds of drooling indigents fighting over tubs of gruel in the aisle of the plane. Immigrants and people who haven't been vaccinated looking over bad fruit and stuff. So I get up and I go to the lavatory of the aircraft, and there's this enormous sign above the toilet that says, "Do not place metal or glass objects in the toilet." Now, that always ruins a trip for me. I like to go back there, wash a load of dishes in it, you know. Now, here's something you can do. If you get bored on a flight, like a 3 or 4 hour flight, here's something you can do to always amuse yourself. Wait till the person in the seat next to you falls asleep. It's a lot of fun. Then what you do, you reach over, get their attention, maybe get them around the throat, give them one of these. And then you say something like, "Well, I guess we're going to find out now if these seat cushions really do float, huh?" A lot of fun, and yes, the laughs come fast and furious. Anyway, I'm back in town, and my car is still not functioning properly, so I got to hitchhike and stuff. Took it in a week and a half ago for a minor tune-up, $35, and the guy says to me what they always say. He says, "Is there a telephone number where we can get a hold of you later today? You know, if we find anything else wrong with the car." Invariably, they find something else wrong with the car. Two days later, the guy calls up and he says, "Yeah, Mr. Letterman, listen, you know, we was resetting the buttons on your radio, and, yeah, your damn engine exploded. Tore it up pretty bad, killed one of our boys. Now, let's see, that'll be a little more than..." So anyway, what I got to do, for instance, I had to hitchhike over here this evening, and this guy stops and picks me up. He's driving an old beat-up Dodge with a bent frame. You know, they kind of go down the freeway at an angle like that. And the windshield on the right-hand side of the car is missing. It's just gone, busted out. And the back seat is on fire. Well, right away, I'm apprehensive about getting in, you know. The guy driving the car is wearing a cowboy hat and a hospital gown, see? So... And he's rolling, the thing that bothers me most of all about him, he's rolling the biggest joint I'd ever seen in my entire life. He was using Pampers, and just awful. We sat at an intersection for a half an hour waiting for a stop sign to change, so it was, Anyway, I came over here tonight, and we're watching the news a little bit, and I learned something just incredible. The most popular newspaper in the entire world now is one of those things you buy at the checkout counter of the grocery stores, you know? And the headlines in that thing today, just incredible. How to lose weight without diet or exercise. Pretty much leaves disease, doesn't it? You know, when you get right down to it. Yeah. I was able to lose over 60 pounds without diet or exercise. What's my secret? Well, I was lucky enough to be seriously ill for a year and a half. It's pretty surprising to me that you learn anything on local news anymore because it's all feature-oriented. You know, you don't have any hard news. And they're 2- and 3-hour newscasts, so they load it up with a lot of stuff you don't care about, and you hear things like, no more oxygen for planet Earth. Well, we'll get to that story a little later if we have time for it, but right now, Arlene has a fascinating feature report about your cat's #1 problem, fur balls. Arlene? Thank you. How many times have you and the members of your family been scared silly because you heard your cat make this noise? Thank you, Arlene, for that fascinating in-depth study. First of a 12-part series here on Eyewitness News. I used to work for the Eyewitness News station back in Indiana where I lived, and thank you. Folks hoping to win a prize for that, I'll bet, huh? And the concept of Eyewitness News, you know, make it as funny as you possibly can. So one day there were 3 murders in the city, and the news director didn't think it would be real amusing to have the anchorman report all 3 of these murders back to back. So they gave one to the sportscaster to do, see? And the guy is reading baseball scores at the time. Well, first in the National League, it was the Mets over the Braves 3-2. Reds got past the Cards 5-4, and the Dodgers murdered the Giants 9-0. Speaking of murders, looks like 45-year-old Eddie Poster won't be going out to the old ballpark anymore. No, Eddie was gunned down last night during a liquor store holdup. Once again, that final score, liquor store 1, Eddie nothing.
Rolling a joint in Pampers?
Yeah.
I like that. Like that. We'll do this. We'll be right back. We're back. We're talking with David Letterman. You know, that's very funny stuff.
Thank you
That's
very
new
much.
and it's fresh and everything. I saw you on Mary's variety show, and you're excellent at that. Have you done a lot of television?
No, I have, well, that was only on like 3 weeks.
Right.
And so people don't recognize me much for that. I used to work at an adult bookstore. I get recognized a lot for that. But, I'd done a couple of things. I was on a show 2 weeks ago, the Battle of the Network Stars, you know.
That's right.
That's a silly show. You know, to me, it's... I don't care, you know. So what if Debbie Boone can do more push-ups than I can? You know...
It's not one of your top priorities in life, I don't assume.
No. I've done some commercial work, or turned some down. You have to be very careful.
Yeah.
They called me up and they said, we got a product here. Why, you folks probably got it, like an electric bird bath, right? Everybody's got one? Yeah. Well, what they do, they heat up the water in the morning so your bird doesn't catch cold out there taking a bath. So I researched this thing, and I went down there, and the guy said that the thing worked perfectly, but they were getting a lot of complaints because people weren't reading instructions, and the birds were getting electrocuted. And he said they got over 500 letters of complaint from people who had their birds die on them. But out of all of those people that wrote in, not one of them ever took the trouble to put the little rubber safety boots on the bird before they put it into the water.
It's their fault.
Yeah, absolutely.
They should not, the company should not be held accountable for that. I know you're from Indiana. Did you work in local radio and television in the West?
I did. I'm from Indiana, and I guess we had folks from South Bend here, right?
Yeah.
It's beautiful there. What a town. Yeah, I used to work in... You know, the one thing I'll never... Well, this happens to everybody. That the kind of thing I'll always remember as long as I live, growing up in Indiana, is when Dad used to tease me with the power tools. How many of you... Did you have that? What a guy.
What a guy. Sense of humor.
Yeah. I'll never... Yeah, he... chase you around the house with a belt sander.
Yeah. Get your attention real quick. Yeah. Come from a funny family. I just asked Dave, you've been working at the Comedy Store, and I said, how's it going? You said, well, rather be working other places for real money.
Yeah, the Comedy Store is a great place to go. You get an audience, and you work out new material. I've been there for 3 years, and... but after a while, you get the itch to go out and earn some dough. So it's a wonderful place to work. So I'm hoping to get out a little more. I work a couple of dates in Baltimore with Tony Orlando. That's Tony Orlando. You wouldn't think he gets an older audience. You know, you open the auditorium and you don't smell popcorn and you smell Vicks, so you know that it's going to. Hymns on the Muzak that they have to turn down before the show starts. But I could always go back to local broadcasting.
Yeah.
I did a lot of that.
Newscaster? Or,
yeah.
Right.
We used to have, it was the local eyewitness news team, and my favorite part of the broadcasting day was always the station editorials. Because you got to remember one thing, you can't be very controversial.
Yeah.
They always pretend to be so controversial, but they never can. Secondly, it gives the station manager the opportunity that he doesn't often get at coming on TV. And so this guy would come out, and he always looked good, had on about a $4 suit and an $8 toupee, you know, and made out of the same stuff. And this guy would come out, and he'd say something like, Channel 13 would like to take this opportunity to say that we are diametrically opposed to the practice of using orphans as yardage markers at driving ranges. We're just...
You can't fault a man like that.
You really can't.
I have a feeling from your shot on this show tonight, you're going to be working a lot outside the Comedy Store.
Thank you.
Really, I hope you come back with us.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We'll be right back. Cowboy hat and a hospital gown? Okay. My next guest has been with us once before. He's a former traffic officer who's written a book called The Ticket Book. And it's a driver's manual, I guess, for avoiding tickets and what to do after you get one and if you go to court or how to avoid going to court and et cetera. Would you welcome Rod Dornside? Rod? You had a whole spread here in today's Herald Tribune.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, what do you mean, no kidding?
I haven't even seen it.
You didn't know that? This is all about you. I said the Tribune, did I? They haven't published the Tribune since 1905 here. The Herald Examiner was what I meant.
I was recently in one of those grocery store publications. And
That David was talking about?
Right, and so I thought, oh, now I've made the big time when they're saying bad things about me in the grocery store.
As soon as they start knocking you, you're ahead of the game.
That's right.
How many tickets as a traffic officer did you ever issue? You have any idea?
I didn't keep count, of course, but an average traffic officer in his career will write somewhere around 70,000.
You said in this article out of the 2.4 million are issued by the California Highway Patrol each year. And there are only 14 million licensed drivers out here, right?
Right.
So that means about every third person.
Well, there's more than that because the 2.4 million are only the CHP or California Highway Patrol. You forgot all about the city and
about
county.
About the local police and so
forth. Yeah, there's 6.3 million issued each year in California. And so you stop and think about it, that's almost 1 out of 2 people.
Let's check. You ever get a ticket out here, David?
I got a shoebox full of them.
Shoebox, all right. Ellen, you ever get a ticket here?
1.
Jim? Doc, you're already on record.
I think he gave me one.
So there's 4 of you right here. Now, I have not received one in California yet.
You're next.
I've been out. But you're out of business now, right?
That's true.
Okay. I'm driving down the highway. I see the cops by. I see those red lights, which immediately is like Jaws 2, right? You panic. What should you do? You pull over. How should you act? What are some of the do's and don'ts for people? Should you admit guilt immediately?
Definitely not.
Definitely not. Now, that's interesting.
No. Some people really stick their neck out. You know, they want to come on very remorseful, very honest, and say, officer, you know, I know I was going 90 miles an hour, but there's a reason. And the officer, while you're saying this, is sometimes taking notes. And certainly if he's not taking notes, he'll write it down on his copy later. And you'll forget that he's taken the trouble to write notes. And when you get in court, you've changed your mind about your guilt by that time, of course. And you get in court, and all of a sudden he turns his copy of the ticket over, and he says, do you remember when you said
I was going 90
miles an hour? And it's awful embarrassing.
Right. Is there any way to keep the officer from starting to write the ticket?
Yes. The thing to do is engage him in conversation. Of course, if he stopped you before, you know, comment on how much weight he's lost or something.
Good. That's good.
Something that'll really get his attention.
In other words, start talking before he starts writing.
The officer, on the other hand, does the same thing with you, the motorist, to keep them from trying to talk him out of it. I mean, like, when I would go up to the car, I'd say, oh, this is a really fine car you have. Is he driver's license? And talk about his car, ask him where he works, ask him where he's going, what he's had for dinner, who the girl is next to him, whatever. Yeah.
What percentage of tickets that are given out are worth, say, going to court?
I would say about 30% of them.
Really worth going to court?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Why?
Well, you know, the problem is the officer's out there every day, and not many people fight him. It's very, very inconvenient.
Because you have to show up somewhere.
Right. It's very intimidating.
But he has to show up too, doesn't he?
Well, not the first time around. The first time around it's an arraignment. And then if you schedule a trial, then, of course, he has to show up. But he gets paid for it. And so when you really look at it, a bad officer could actually make more money because he's getting paid overtime than an officer that's doing a good job.
So in case if you think it's unfair, you should really try to get it off your record.
That's right.
Now, what would be unfair? Suppose I got a radar thing. Now, that happens. You always see these things, radar ahead.
Well, you know, like with radar, there's a lot of things that can affect it. For example, if you were driving by and you had a CB in your car, and when you were to key down the microphone and you're going to tell the guy behind you, of course, about this radar trap ahead, you could cause a reading on the radar. You could be going 55 and the reading could be 75. And it's picking up your CB transmission.
So what you're saying, they can make mistakes on that?
That's right. There's some errors that can crop up with radar.
Do officers like that if you say, I'm going to fight this or I'm going to go to court? Doesn't that make them a little hostile?
Well, the best thing to do at the scene, bear in mind, this is his situation. He's calling the numbers and he's controlling it. So if you try to get into a verbal contest with him or try to argue the merits of the citation, you're going to lose. So just try to blend into the crowd. You know, remember, he writes thousands and thousands of tickets. Try to be Mr. Average. Just don't say a thing. Go along with whatever he has to say. Yes, sir, no, sir, and go on your way. And he won't remember you.
What about these things I see advertised now about radar you can put in your car that lets you know if there's a radar thing ahead? Are those legal?
Right, that's the fuzzbuster type radar detectors, right?
Yeah, they tell you when you're coming to a radar control zone.
They're legal in all states except Virginia. But in Virginia, they had a recent situation where the guts of the law, in essence, was overturned by a Supreme Court ruling whereby they said, not only do you have to possess one to be guilty, but you have to possess it for an unlawful purpose. And it has to be in use, and it has to be in use for an unlawful purpose. So you can see how difficult it is.
Is that an unlawful purpose? If you have one in your car that lets you know that there's a radar?
Well, theoretically, yes, but there's so many, there are some lawful reasons for
What could you say? You're looking for enemy planes? They're not going to buy that.
Well,
you know, you can't say the Germans may attack. I'm carrying this in the car.
Well, you know, some truckers have argued, I know in Alaska, they use radar detectors to find delivery points.
Right.
They'll broadcast with a radar beam, and the truckers will home in with their radar units, radar detectors.
What happens if somebody gets, now this, you know, how much of this goes on? Guy gives you his license, and under the license is, say, a $20 bill or a $50 bill.
Not as much as it used to.
No.
10 years ago.
California, I know, is very tough.
Oh, in the West, you know, you'll go to jail just right now if you drive that. But I know I heard a story the other day where a guy was telling about how easy it was and how clever a way he had. And what he did is when the officer come up to the window, he'd hold up a $10 bill. And he says, I'll bet you $10 you're going to give me a ticket. And the cop takes the $10 and says, you lose. And walks out.
Won't try that anymore, I guess. We got a 55-mile speed limit around the country, all over now, federal. People obviously are not observing it. If you've been on any freeway at all, if you drive 55, you are going to get rear-ended by practically 95 or 99% of the drivers, because the average speed is very close to 60 now.
At least.
Do you think it's a good idea to keep that because the Highway Patrol gives people 60, or was it 65 they'd give them 70?
Well, that's,
Just personally, what do you think?
I don't think the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit
Is realistic?
It's not realistic. And traffic engineers time and time again will tell you, don't post a limit that is unrealistic because the people won't follow it. And you have a better chance of keeping them in line if you post a limit that's realistic.
The people will say, okay, 65 is all right. And
Abe Lincoln once said, he said, the best way to get a bad law repealed is enforce it strictly. And that's exactly, I think, what's going to happen with the 55.
That's interesting. You think that'll go out of existence?
With time.
All right. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Well, in case you're nailed on the highway, this might help. Won't get you out of court, but it might. Thanks, Rod, for being here.
Oh, thank you.
David, thanks. It was a great pleasure. I hope you come back with us.
Thank you.
It was a great spot. Ellen, of course, is in same time next year, which is open in New York and Los Angeles already, and I assume around the rest of the country very soon.
Very soon.
I hope it's a big hit for you. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you, James. See you at the next pleasant party. Monday night, Don Rickles will be here with Glenn Campbell, Elkie Sommer, Ann Landers, and Artie and Gisela Johnson. Thank you. Have a nice weekend. I'm humbled by that applause.